Welcome to Miles of Books, a book-centric show to take along on your run from another mother runner and feisty. I'm your host, Sarah Bowen Shea, and I'm joined by smiling Coach Liz Waterstraat to talk about an intriguing nonfiction book. Hello there, Liz.
Hi, Sarah.
So I'm excited to talk about this episode's book with you as it deals with something I am quite good at, which is oversharing. The book is Revealing the Underrated Power of Oversharing by Leslie John. It's from 2024 and it comes in at 240 pages. So share a bit about the author and why this book called to you, Liz.
Another beautiful cover,
Yes.
which was the first selling point, but not
You're
the
not
only
shallow
one.
at all.
No, no, nothing but high class here. So this book was written by Leslie John. She is a professor at the Harvard Business School. Very important. Her research focuses on self-disclosure, privacy, trust, and decision-making. Those are some light topics right there. Basically, she studies why people share what they share and why they hide what they hide, even better. But more importantly, how these choices shape relationships, performance, and well-being. This book is science-driven, but it's also very story-rich. And it's just an exploration of why humans chronically undershare. I don't know that I entirely agree with that, but maybe I spend too much time on Instagram. But it looks at our fear of saying too much is often replaced or misplaced, and why thoughtful self-disclosure is one of the most powerful tools we have for connection, trust, and emotional health. She also argues that most of us dramatically overestimate the risks of opening up and underestimate the benefits, leading to what she calls a TLI. Now, we've all heard of TLI. We have painstakingly heard TMI, but TLI is what she calls too little information, and she says it's a big problem.
Well, I mean, one way that Another Mother Runner grew its audience was by our TMI Tuesdays. So I definitely know the power of oversharing. So
yeah, and I will confirm, as somebody who often read those TMIs, you did a skillful job of oversharing. Every Tuesday, I was like, there she is again, oversharing. How does she do this? It takes a certain amount of gumption, Sarah.
gumption. Oh my gosh, that is a word my 10th grade English teacher threw at me.
We talked about it in the last Miles of Books. You told us about gumption. So anyhow,
I'm so pleased that you remembered. I'm very flattered.
So like the word gumption being a personality trait, John actually argues that revealing is not a personality trait. So this isn't something, your capacity for oversharing was not something that you were born with. It's more of a skill, one that can be learned and calibrated and used intentionally to strengthen relationships. And she says you can use it at home, at work, or in any high-pressure environment.
So, and does she practice what she preaches?
Yeah, I thought one of the more interesting features of this book is she discloses a little bit more and more about herself throughout the book. And sometimes she does it in a really interesting way where she'll tell a story and she'll call the main character of the story Jennifer. And then all of a sudden at the end of the chapter, she confesses that indeed she was Jennifer. So it was a cute way of her to just keep revealing like these little nuggets about herself. One was she revealed that she got divorced and how that marriage fell apart, which I thought was, really like brave of her to share. But then there are just some other things like these silly, would the word be guffaws that she experienced or had in different phases of her life and different situations.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, it's time for a quick sponsor break. Stay with us. Okay, so let's dig deeper into revealing the book and revealing/oversharing. And I got to say, when you told me what this book was about, immediately an anecdote from my personal life, from Jennifer's personal. There was this woman, Jennifer, and she was going through a divorce, an unexpected divorce. Yes, this is me. And I was living in the Bay Area. I was living in San Francisco, and I joined a master's rowing team. and it was practice to oftentimes go out for breakfast together after the Saturday workout. And so there I was, my very first time with these teammates, with these potential teammates. I hadn't even like officially gotten on the team. And, over the cornmeal blueberry pancakes, there I am just telling them all about how this unexpected divorce came about and yada, 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 da, 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 da. Afterwards, like a couple of weeks later, some of my friends were like, wow. Then they called me Bowen. I think I've mentioned that before on the podcast, with my middle name, because there was already another Sarah on the rowing team. They were like, Bowen, man, at that first breakfast, you were just going on and on about your divorce. And I was like,
Oh,
what? Yeah. So anyway, and some of those people are still my friends. So, I think I would support what John says is that, being revealing can help strengthen bonds. So what are some of the other core ideas?
well, John says that the real issue is not oversharing like you did in that first meeting of your teammates, but it's more undersharing. And she says that we're often thinking that we fear TMI, but research has shown that people are more receptive to our disclosures than we expect, and that the bigger cost to our relationships is just being silent. And you know why? Because people will fill in our blanks if we don't
Mm,
disclose and share. They'll make up their mind about us or pick information that might not even be real or relevant. And,
mm,
she brings up about this idea of oversharing because I think it's relatively a new thing. I don't think back in, let's say, when your parents were growing up, there was much oversharing going on.
no.
But she kind of pinned it to back in the early 2000s. Remember blogs? I had a blog. It's how I
Uh,
started my business. I definitely overshared a bit there. I think about some of the birth stories that I shared and think, why would I have done that? But, oversharing doesn't really signal weakness. It connects people to us. And she also says that when you share more information, it's kind of you're going against this thing that she calls a confidence flex, which is pretending like everything is under control when it's not, because we don't want to look uncertain. So I guess that would be the risk of not oversharing, is that you try to give this illusion that everything's going well, but really it's not. You're better off
mm,
oversharing.
mm.
She also says that we tend to mispredict how people will respond to our honesty. And she said just to remember that vulnerability signals trust to people. So it's this act of revealing versus concealing that says, I trust you. And she
Mm,
calls it one of the most beautiful forms of connection. And I would agree
mm.
with that when you think about, some of your best friends are also the people who are the most vulnerable with you. And they tell you, they let you in on pieces of themselves.
Or I'm thinking of, I know you're not a pet owner, but I'm thinking about, when a dog or a cat reveals its belly,
Oh,
that
yeah.
that's them being vulnerable, and it shows that they trust you,
Yes.
and then that connection does happen, then, I mean, who doesn't feel like they love a dog when they pet its belly?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And going along with that, a thoughtful revealing of your belly or underside strengthens. Could you imagine if we just all walked around and showed our bellies to people we like? 3 kids, 3 C-sections. No, it's not happening. Uh, but going along those same lines, thoughtful revealing strengthens relationships. And she said performance too. And she said just well-timed openness creates this idea of psychological safety. It improves collaboration and it just deepens connection. And it's therapeutic because we start to put words to our experiences and it just helps us organize what she calls the chaos in our mind.
sure. Okay. So you talked about social media and that perhaps this is where oversharing or sharing came in. But I think in the age of social media, sharing has gotten distorted because it seems like people are sharing more. Certainly, there's a lot more images of people, moving images, video. I'm talking about. But are they really, or
Mm.
are they just doing a version of that confidence flex that John wrote about?
Yeah, you have to wonder about your feed, how much of those images are curated or the story is even curated. I'm thinking about it's kind of a joke that when you don't see a professional triathlete posting pictures of themselves running and you see lots of pictures of them swimming and biking, they're most likely injured because if you if you don't know anything about professional triathletes, they love their pictures of themselves out there running. So when those pictures go away, you have to, what's going on there? So yeah, I think we're just seeing a very polished and selective view of people's sharing. And I don't know, is that oversharing? I don't think that sticks to the true spirit of the term.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, yeah. And again, there was I was just on a call with this woman who is going to be one of the presenters at Feisty Fest. And it turns out that she wrote a whole book about kind of TMI topics with like chafing and pooping on a run and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, our gals love that stuff. You have to come and talk about this. And, like, not only did that certainly grow our Facebook following in the early days of Another Mother Runner, but I would argue that it really kind of strengthened the bonds between
Hmm.
our gals and allowed them to be vulnerable and knew that Another Mother Runner was a place they could come and be seen and understood and being able to admit that they, I don't know, leak when they run, that's a bonding thing.
Yeah. Well, and you as the leader, you become more humanized because you're willing to share. And one of the first things that I used to tell this group, I many years ago coached this Ironman group, and one of the first thing I did was just say, ask me any question. Trust me, I have been through it all. I have seen it all. I have heard it all. I have pooped along the side of the road. I have thrown my bike in a ditch. And so when you just open up and let people see your cracks, they start to feel like safer with you and more connected.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So Liz, flex your superpower, which is to glean tips and advice from a book. So what are some things that you learned from this book?
Well, like I already alluded to, revealing is a skill. It's not a personality trait. So openness isn't something you're born with or you're good at or you're bad at. It's something like any other skill. You can practice it and you can improve. And that reframes, when you think about vulnerability, uh, it's you can become more vulnerable with people. It's not this idea of this is just who I am. You have to look at it as this is something I can get better at. And I think
Mhm.
that was important to me because, as an introvert, I'm very private. I don't, even though I just said to people, I just poop on the side of the road. I don't share a lot about myself, but it's good to know that I can get better at it. There's things I can get better at, Sarah. My day
I
has
don't
been
believe
made.
it.
Um, and then the other thing I learned was that silence sends a message, even when we think it doesn't.
Mhm.
Withholding isn't neutral. So, when I stay quiet,
Mhm.
others fill in the blanks, and often they will fill them in inaccurately. So, revealing isn't just about sharing more, it's about preventing misunderstandings that come from when you say nothing.
That makes me think of the pickleball court.
Oh, we have made it how many minutes? 13 minutes. And this is our first reference. Please share.
So, in particular, so I know this might shock you, but I'm kind of chatty and social on the pickleball court, and I love flexing that. I just love the social aspect of the game, of the sport. And there's this one woman that I occasionally will play with in a larger group, meaning she's not one of my pickleball friends, let's say. And she just doesn't say anything on the
Hmm.
court. And she radiates just negativity. And my whole thing is it doesn't cost anything to say, nice shot. Oh, great serve. Oh, awesome. Way to hustle. Like, so maybe she's just shy. I've tried to chalk that up, but the few things she has said hasn't been super pleasant.
Hmm.
But I just think her silence really does send a message, and it says, I don't really enjoy being here with you, or I think I'm a better player than you are, or I don't notice the effort you're putting out here, so therefore I don't need to acknowledge it. And which feels kind of crummy, particularly if you're that person's partner. So I
Definitely.
do believe that silence sends a message for sure.
Yeah, it sends a message. But even if she was would just open up a little bit, goes with the next thing I learned here, which is that just those little small disclosures matter more than big ones.
Mm.
And that's how connection grows, just from those micro reveals. Even if she was to walk in and say, listen, I'm not having a great day. She would just micro reveal that little bit about herself, and then you would have hope. Oh, this person really is enjoying the time with me. And those tiny moments build honesty. They build trust, more than dramatic confessions. Although, wouldn't it be great if she walked in and she had a dramatic confession? Like after months of saying nothing, she just sits there and tells you about her divorce over cornmeal pancakes. Is there anything more Marin County than cornmeal
Marin.
pancakes?
Yes, yes. Oh, they were so good. They were so good. We also always had the cutest waiter there. He was like this little surfer dude. He was probably half my height. And those were really great breakfasts. I miss them so much. So, what are some things that surprised you about the book?
We've talked about some of these things, but she had shown research that people like us more when we reveal. I think you can attest to that, as I'm sure people feel very connected to you after all that TMI Tuesdaying, and how this TMI problem is really just imagined. True oversharing is rare, she said. Although when I'm thinking about this whole book, there's a radio station here in Chicago, WGN, and there used to be two women hosts, Kathy and Judy. And every holiday season, they had a segment called Merry Medical Christmas. Anyone from Chicago remember this growing up? Am I showing my age? They would read letters that listeners would send in that they had received from people who had overshared like medical diagnoses. It was so funny. Like the detail people would go in about their colonoscopy or whatever. So I do think that there is a true oversharing out there. It's not as rare as Leslie John thinks. But there was probably more damage if those people had withheld that information from others, because who knows, maybe they were absent for a period of their life and people were like, where is, Leslie? And we already touched upon how small disclosures, they create those big shifts in relationships. It's just those tiny little reveals that build closeness. But it's like with your spouse, those little bids for affection that just add up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, well, we're going to pause for another short sponsor break. Coach Liz will overshare more when we return. Okay, time for the parting gifts from this book. Start with general life lessons, Liz.
So I would encourage people to share one layer deeper than feels comfortable. Maybe not with a complete stranger, but sometimes that actually bridges the gap between you and them and makes people feel better. I'm thinking about like when you're waiting in line and you
Oh,
say something, right, like to diffuse the situation or to get that contact, like, hey, we're both here, we're both in this together. So
I'm
one layer deeper.
I'm queen of doing that, and it mortifies my children. They're just like, Mom, why are you doing this?
Yeah. Another thing that she explained, I really like this, is to just name your internal experience. And something I do from time to time, I will just, like when you just have anxiety and you can just feel it, like you feel it in your bones. And I find, especially as I get older, I will walk around and just say to my husband, I'm anxious. And it's just recognizing that feeling, giving it a name. It helps to bring it down a little bit. So she's saying just, name your internal experience, share it with people, and that those little things will reduce not only your anxiety and feeling, but also build trust between you and the person.
Mm. Hmm. Hmm. And how about takeaways for athletes?
Uh, to reduce performance silence. So she said that athletes often hide fatigue, fear, and confusion, just like people who hide struggles at work or in relationships. And so when you reveal how you're feeling, like, you know, if you've ever worked with a coach and let's say you're just feeling really grouchy or really hungry, but the workout went okay and you just put in your training log that the workout went okay, like maybe you should start to reveal the full the 360 degrees of how you're feeling, just beyond I checked the box. Maybe you should start putting in those little things because they probably do matter overall for your performance. And also to strengthen trust in your high stakes relationships. So, like I just said, with the coach, the athlete, have honest disclosure, and that will help to lead to better decisions and probably better performance. And then lastly, manage the emotional load of striving. So learn how to name pressure or doubt or excitement. Sometimes people, I used to work with an athlete and they would just get they were just overwhelmed on race week. And so they would start to self-sabotage and they would start to get distance with me. And I almost wanted to say, can we just name what you're feeling here? Can we just talk about how you're feeling anxious or you're feeling unconfident or maybe you're just feeling scared? It will actually help you to better regulate your emotions and improve your resilience when you do that.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. All right. Well, I think this sounds like you enjoyed this book and that there's some really good takeaways in it.
I did. I really enjoyed reading it. It flows really well. She uses a lot of personal stories and examples, just the right amount. It's
Mm,
also very well written. In fact, was
mm.
it this book? There was one book I read recently, and I just thought, wow, this is really good writing. It's clear and it's hers. I think there was only one use of a AI sounding word in the book. It may have been like the use of the word alignment somewhere along the way. I thought, my antenna's going up. But no, this is clearly her writing, and it's very good.
All right. Well, always great to talk with you, Liz. And listeners, thanks for joining us. Miles of Books is a production of Another Mother Runner and Feisty Media. For more on Feisty and our other shows, events, workshops, and Feisty Fest in September in the Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania, visit feisty.co. That's feisty.co.